Welcome to the Queer Confidence Podcast, the podcast to help you become your most confident queer self. I'm your host, he, she, they, Coach Alex Ray, and I haven't always been this confident. In fact, I used to be super insecure. And through this show, I want to share with you what's worked for me, my clients, and my guests so that you can become more confident. Hello, my unicorns. Welcome. Oh my God. Are you excited for today's episode? I'm sure you've seen today's special guest. She is my absolute favorite hero so far from Queer Eye. I freaking bawled my eyes out with my grandmother. And I'm so grateful to have her on the show today because she just has an amazing story and an amazing personality. And I love her willingness to be vulnerable and be authentic and just share really more of who she is with you today. So you already got to know her a little bit, but get ready, y'all, to know Angel Flores on an even deeper. Welcome, Angel.
Hello. How are y'all? I'm sure y'all are doing amazing. I'm sure you're doing amazing too. Thank you for all your amazingly kind words. You have me like crying over here. I'm like, oh my God. I've had so many amazing kind words thrown at me over the last month, and it's been a hell of an experience. So
yeah, I can only imagine like going, it's like instant stardom.
Oh God. So I started off December 31st in the morning. Like in the morning, nobody's seen the episode yet. I was at 1,300 followers. And I guess today it would be January 28th. And I have 96K, I think almost. So It's definitely been a huge flip and a huge change for me. Being very, very visible. But it's been so fun, and like being able to interact with so many amazing people and inspire so many amazing people to do the things that I do and to be who they truly are. Like I've gotten so many messages of people just like I've done more searching because of you. I've come out because of you. I found the courage to invite other people into my story because of you. And that like those things all inspire me, and like I cry every single time I see them because it's just so powerful that we're so powerful, you know?
Yes. You know, I think it's beautiful. Like, we are all just humans. Like, we're all the freaking same. And look at how your vulnerability and your authenticity, your willingness to show up as yourself and fully like be here y'all go, here's who I am, like has had such an impact on other people. And you didn't have to like do anything other than probably get over the fear of like people seeing you at your most vulnerable, right?
I mean, like honestly, it was pretty natural. Like I think
there you go.
The Queer Eye team did a lot of work like preparing me and getting me into like that very natural mindset. Like, okay, it's just you and a friend. You're just talking, having a good conversation. And honestly, like once the camera started rolling, I feel like I got some charm picked up, and I was like, oh, this is easy. This is easy. I could do this.
I got the sense you're a little bit of a performer.
Honestly, like, have you seen me compete? Like, oh my God, I have like I have the most ridiculous setups. I'm always like performing. Everything's so loud and obnoxious and wide, and it's how it needs to be, you know? Like I tell people,
fucking party.
It's a party, and I tell people like when I'm out and about, like I'm Angel, hi, hello, how are you? But once Archangel steps on the platform, like it's go time, we're done, you know. And we're here to perform, and we're here to show you a good time. So
yes, Archangel. So like Archangel is like your iconic alter ego.
Absolutely. Like that's when I put the war paint on and the singlet and the gear on, and I'm like, yes, let's get going.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay, so tell us a little bit more. I think for everyone listening, give us some advice for just living authentically. It's a very broad question.
Yeah, it's an extremely broad question, and I can always bring up my most recent talk at my event this past week, January 23rd, We did
Yeah.
an amazing screening, an amazing charity event trying to raise money for our Pull Your Heart Out Fund, breaking down more barriers for athletes in our local area. Um, at that at that event, I was actually asked a question about living authentically. You know, like what what have you learned that helps you live more authentically? You know,
Yeah.
and it was specifically between like what are the Fab Five taught you, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to focus today on the idea of not looking at the mirror, but looking at yourself in the mirror. I
Mm.
feel like so many of us get caught up when we're staring at the mirror and we're like looking at all of our features. We're getting caught up on what other people are going to perceive us. You know, like how are other people
Mm-hmm.
going to see us, and how are other people going to acknowledge and call us and speak to us. You know, and so what I want to fight is that don't look at the mirror, look at yourself. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like how do you feel in that outfit? How do you feel with your eyes all done up and your hair combed and the JVN hair gloss and the hair and the fancy clothes? How do you feel in those heels? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, like you have insecurities and you have insecurities about how other people are going to perceive you. But
Mm-hmm.
if we go into every single event, every single day, knowing that we're confident in ourselves, you know, seeing ourselves in the mirror and knowing that no matter what, I feel gorgeous or I feel
Mm.
handsome or I feel powerful. You know,
Mm.
another question I'm sure you wanted to touch on it was the question I posted on Instagram the other day about femininity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my advice for people who like are struggling with things like large arms, wide shoulders, wide waist, stuff like that. And what I told my wonderful friend is that it's not about how others perceive you as feminine. It's about how you perceive you as feminine, right? It's
Mm.
about how, if do you look in the mirror and do you see femininity? If you do, then that's what's important, you know? And if anybody else can't see that, that's their fault. And that's their problem. And that's where they need to take a step back and realize that you are living your true self and you are being so powerful with every single step that you take because you know how you feel and you know how you look. And the more that we
Yeah.
can open up like that to the world, the more the world can come in and help us and grow with us and work alongside us. You know, it's all compassion and it's all just, you know,
Yeah.
we're just trying to live our true selves and that's it. And we shouldn't be punished for that at all.
Right. And this is the illustration I give often for the like exactly what you said. The metaphor I love to use is that we're all art. We're all artwork. And the beautiful thing about art is it doesn't dictate how other people think or feel about it. It just sparks thoughts and feelings, right?
Absolutely. Katya always when like I look at Katya when she's doing art and she's just in this flow. She's doing whatever she wants. She doesn't have a style that she needs to stick to. She doesn't have like necessarily a plan that she has. She just starts
Mm,
going, and what she ends up with is what she thinks is beautiful and what truly came from her soul, you know. And
yeah.
if we can take that and apply it to everything, you know, I go to the gym and I'm looking at it and I'm saying I'm moving in my own way. I'm performing in my own way, and that's what's important. You know, I'm doing it how I need to, right? If we
Mm,
take it to the closet, you know, like we pull the clothes out that make us feel the best, and we shouldn't be pulling clothes out with the intention of worrying about what others think. You know,
mm-hmm,
this is our style and we're showing our soul and we're showing our beauty, you know.
mm-hmm,
And so like I said, like the more that we can take that like easygoing, like don't look at the mirror, look at you, focus on you, it's about
mm-hmm.
you, you know, and
Yeah.
we can focus on us and still spread compassion and happiness.
Totally. Totally. And like this is a cornerstone of confidence, which is obviously the main topic of this podcast, right? And what do you think it is? Because what my definition of insecurity is outsourcing your security. You've given your security to other people instead of it being how you can create your own security and how you feel about yourself. What do you think helps you to be able to look in the mirror and we know our brain makes up bullshit that like other people are thinking all these things, but what helps you come back to like, but what do I think?
Well, I think it's understanding that I have taken a new ownership of my form and a new ownership of my body, right?
Mm,
By undergoing these treatments and trying to find my true self and the form that I feel the safest and the most at home in, it's truly given
Mm.
me this new understanding of like our bodies are truly our own and we can do
Hmm.
whatever we want. There's no rules, there's no rules about what we do or do not do with our body as long as we're not hurting others, or hurting
Right.
ourselves. Like as long as we're staying within the bounds of not causing pain, we should be allowed to go about and have that ownership of our bodies, right? So when I wake
Hmm.
when I wake up in the morning, I know that it's not anybody else that's waking up. It's Angel that's waking up. I know that that is
Mm.
my name, right? I ask my athletes, are you comfortable right now? It's not about well, how hard does it feel, or how this does it feel? Yeah, we're gonna work hard and we're gonna push the boundaries, right? But are you comfortable doing that in your current form? And are you comfortable being where you are as you are? Right? Because
Mm.
if you're not where you are as you are, right? Like you're kind of just faking it. And we shouldn't be going through life like trying to hide ourselves, right? There's so much beauty within ourselves, right? I hope I didn't lose your question in there, but
No, this is
to
so perfect.
and I mean, like, if you're asking on the physical side, like what helps me day to day, it's doing the small things, like
Mm.
it's the occasional eyeliner, right?
Yeah.
It's the occasional like, oh, my butt looks a little better today. I'm gonna wear these joggers that make it look even better. Like it's doing the small things to help me recognize my own features that I love and help me like amplify the things that I love about myself, so I can give them and invite other people in to celebrate them with me.
I freaking love that. Like, so many people are focused on all the things that they don't like about themselves and how can I fix this thing that I don't love. How much more useful is it to be like, wait, but here's the things that I do love. Let's just enhance these and show them off and let everyone see how fucking fabulous they are.
Absolutely. And we're healing trauma, right? There's this
Mm.
wonderful writer that I love named Alok. I'm sure plenty of people are fans of Alok. But on a podcast, they expressed that they had men come up to them on the street and say, I used to wear dresses when I was younger. And then Alok will ask, well, what happened? And they can't articulate what happened, because they're hurting. And as Alok says it, like there's trauma there, there's pain, and we can't even
Mm-hmm.
articulate what that pain is, right? And I take that a step further with my coaching and how I talk to my people with like, let's articulate how we feel from the very beginning, so we don't have to worry about it later on, right?
Yeah.
If we can walk into every situation being able to articulate how we feel and what we need to feel, every conversation is going to be that much more communicative, right? Every conversation is
Mm-hmm.
going to be that much easier, right? The more that we try to understand each other, the better that we operate as a system and as a whole, right? And like as a facility, as a gym, as a work, as anything, right?
Yeah.
I If we hide ourselves, we're just pretending, and we shouldn't be pretending anymore. It's 2021, y'all. Like if if you need to go seek help, then seek help. And
Mm-hmm.
if you decide that it's time for you to live your true self, then do it.
Yeah. I love that. On the topic of help, what have been some of the most helpful resources for you?
Medically, it's been the wonderful like in-person doctors here in Austin. The Kind
Mm.
Clinic and Pride Family Medicine have both been amazing for my own hormone treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, I have actually built this amazing circle and support system within my gym, Liberation Barbell Club, and within my friends spread around Austin and around the country. I've been, as I do my activism and as I move through this time where I have the news cycle on me and my name's everywhere, it's it's thinking about what I can do for everybody else, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when I look at it, I know that of any trans athlete, and especially trans female athlete, um, I have this amazing privilege of having this cushion to fall back on, right? Like
Mm.
I have this amazing support system that allows me to take the hate to the face and still come out swinging and yelling and screaming and yelling out what I need to say because my voice is important and our voice is important, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the more that I can take advantage of that, the more that everybody else feels safe and the more that everybody else feels like they can do the same thing. So I encourage everybody I know, like, go find a support system, whatever you love doing, theater,
Mm-hmm.
cooking, anything that you love doing, go find the community there. Cause I promise you that those people will care more about you being there and amplifying the enjoyment that they have of that space over anything that you might think might bother them. I,
Yeah.
I I think that we can all unite behind things like movements and sports and even things like work and theater. Like we can all unite behind those things and build amazing support systems for each other.
I love that. Yeah. It's like, oh wait, we could all be working together here instead of constantly thinking we're on our own freaking island.
Oh my God, revolutionary, right? Like,
Right.
I'm glad
What
that I can.
society?
Yeah, like what society? It's not us. I thought we were communicators the whole way. No,
Mm.
not at all.
Oh my god. That's so helpful. And on your story on Instagram, I like we kind of dipped on the into this a little bit, but yesterday you were talking, I think like about labels and saying like this sentence stood out to me that you said, we are more than our identity, but our identity is also who we are. Um I would love, because I think we have very similar perspectives on labels and how to use them for our best. What advice do you have for people?
I've in my past, and especially myself, I've encountered situations or been in situations where, like, either somebody else or even me, I say, well, like, I'm not just trans, like, I also do this, or I'm not a trans powerlifter, I'm just a powerlifter. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or other people who comment on my posts and say, like, well, why do we need to say you're trans? Because you just look like a normal woman just like me, and you're just so you're just a powerlifter, right? And I want people to take a step back and understand that one, labels are tools in our belt to one, help us find community and help us feel better about who we are, right?
Yeah.
We can use labels to help us feel more confident in what we're doing day to day, and that's perfectly fine. um don't be scared of having that label, you know, like you don't have to hide the fact that you're trans or queer at all anymore. Like maybe in
Mm-hmm.
certain unsafe spaces, for sure, hide it. But if
Mm-hmm.
we're in our communities, and especially speaking out to the public, we shouldn't have to separate our identities and our work and our dreams, you know. I think
Mm-hmm.
that that was a big question that I had coming into transition and transitioning into sports as well.
Okay.
Was like, why do I have to choose between being a woman and being an athlete? And
Right.
like and honestly, I shouldn't have to. You know, I shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have to choose between one, improving my quality of life and finding my true self, and chasing my dreams of excellence and championship, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um and those dreams of excellence and championship have been with me since I was tiny. So
Mm-hmm.
to tell me now that I have to choose between them, it's not fair, right? And it's not
Yeah.
right. Everybody should have those dreams and those aspirations. And so
Yeah.
that moves into the idea of own your labels and understand that you're more than them, right? Like own that you
Mm.
are a trans person, but also know that you are a trans XXX. You know, you are a trans powerlifter, activist, influencer, or a theater star or anything. Own your labels. Own your
Mm-hmm.
labels and then show the world through the work that you do and through all the things you accomplish who you really are. And that's what's going to be the most important, because everybody that sees you living your true self and recognizes that they could do that too is one step closer to a more unified world.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that too, like they're important and they're also meaningless because
Absolutely.
like
Absolutely.
right, because like these labels we use them, but then they cannot possibly cover the depth of who we are as humans, and one person's definition of that word is different than the other person's definition of that word.
Absolutely. Like language is so limiting, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I can communicate more through a hug than I can communicate through an hour of talking. Like and I
Yeah.
like I would rather just sit and give you a hug and sit in a comfortable, secure silence than give you a massive talk on why labels are complete garbage. Because honestly, like you're right, they are meaningless. And like I said, they're just tools in our tool belt for us to use, you know?
Yes.
I think everybody gets so caught up on like the permanence of labels, right?
Mm.
Like we're putting this false permanence on our sexuality and our gender, when in reality all these things are ever changing and ever fluid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own like biological set and also like experiential set, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody is molded through both biology and experience, and
Yeah.
the more that we look at it and say everything's changing all the time instead of just trying to be like, you are this and that's it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it'll just like, we're more accepting, we're more inclusive, you know, like,
Yeah.
and also, how does me saying that I'm trans or me competing as a trans person harm you,
Right.
right? Especially, right? Um, and like that goes into so many further conversations. But when I'm living my truth, it's not causing you pain, and it's
Right.
not causing you hardship, right?
Right.
Oftentimes, if you're experiencing pain or hardship, it's probably coming from a much deeper, worse system in our society, not from me as an individual.
Right. Right. That is so good for everyone to think about. Like that, it really is. If you're afraid that people are going to attack you or they are attacking you, it
Mm-hmm.
really isn't like your fault per se. It's really much more you're activating something within that person. They already have some trauma, they already have some pain that like they haven't worked through, and you're just a reminder of that to them, and that's why they're lashing out.
Absolutely. And like that goes into the more that we can articulate our pain, the more that we
Mm,
can teach each other to be careful with each other and to love each other better, right? Like
mhm.
we spend years in relationships teaching this one other person how to treat us better as our true selves, right? But my argument is, why don't we do that every single day? You know, why wouldn't I go to the gym and talk to my close friends that I see nearly every single day and try to actively show them how they can treat me as a better human, and have them show me how I can treat them as a better human, you know?
Yeah.
It all works in tandem.
Yeah. I mean, like, we expect other people to be mind readers, and like, we know
Yeah,
they're not. Like, what the fuck? It doesn't even make sense, right? And
exactly.
and where you're being a good friend to yourself, like you're being kind to yourself when you're like, hey, wait, hold on, that really hurt when you said that, and I'm going to speak up and say something because I care
Yes.
about you, and I also know that you care about me, and I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but like, it matters that it hurt me.
Yeah, and everybody's always focused on like impact versus intent. And my question is, why isn't it impact and intent? You know, like
Ah, yes.
we should take the full picture and say, okay, I understand where you were intending that to go,
Mm-hmm.
but it hurt me, and this
Yeah.
is how we make this better, right? And I
Yes.
hate people who are just like, God, I can't say anything anymore because, well, yeah, think before you speak. Think before you speak. Like sometimes people say words, and like we said, language is so limiting that we don't even realize that we're harming somebody.
Right.
Um, but we shouldn't automatically jump to the defensive when we're told that we've harmed somebody. You know, like when
Yeah.
somebody tells me that I've hurt their feelings, I'm like, oh my god, how can I make it better?
Right.
Not like, oh, no, you shouldn't be hurt. Like, come on now.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's look, we're all adults. It's time to start like being okay with dichotomy, with two conflicting things
No,
instead of
white. Like nothing is black and white. Everything is
right.
gray.
Oh, so true.
Or a bunch of wonderful colors on the spectrum.
That also, yes, please. Can we have the entire freaking rainbow just stirred up? Life is so much more vibrant that way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm. Um. Okay. I would love to hear. Actually, before I go there, I would love to hear if you have any advice for sticking up for yourself when it feels really difficult.
I would say take a breath. I understand that you're in pain, right? I understand that any person that, for example, gets misgendered, right? It's a brief moment of pain, right?
Mm,
Um, but I need you to take a breath and again understand impact and intent, right? Everything's gray. Um,
mm-hmm.
if you can ask a question, right? Say, hey, did you mean for that to come out the way you did? And then a conversation ensues, right? But if it's a situation where you don't feel comfortable finding that space to ask that question or to try and find clarity, take a step away, right?
Mm,
And that's we should never feel ashamed from needing to take the time for ourselves, even in our day-to-day lives. If you just need to take a short walk, 5 minutes, take a walk around the corner, catch your breath, find a nice safe spot for you to breathe and understand, okay, I'm okay, we're going to be okay, and then go back in. And maybe ask that question or maybe not, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say it all goes back to that support system, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
having people there to have your back no matter what, even if it's just like your parents or your siblings, you know, like having somebody to text when you're feeling down or when somebody said the wrong thing, and having somebody there to look at you and say, it's okay, you're okay, we're okay,
Mm-hmm.
everything is going to be a-okay. And again, it's not you, it's that person, right? It's not your fault. It is not your fault that that person isn't seeing your true self. It is that person's fault. And that
Yeah.
person either A, needs to check themselves, or B, go educate and like
Yeah.
learn more and ask you questions. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we have to assume that every single person that walks in front of us has dignity and integrity, because
Mm.
otherwise we're just gonna not treat people the way that they should be treated, and we shouldn't, and we're gonna just assume, right? Assume how people feel and assume how we should talk, right? When in reality we should be constantly learning, constantly changing.
I love that perspective. And it's like, to me, like the one word feeling that I need to cultivate in my body for that is curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like when I'm curious, I can't also be simultaneously like on the attack or like inappropriately defensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just, I wonder what they meant. Did they,
Yeah.
maybe they, like, genuinely, it was a slip of the tongue. Maybe they had no idea. Maybe they're a genuine asshole. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. And it also, like, for example, like my friend screwed up my pronouns earlier this morning, and it wasn't her fault. There were a million things going
Hmm.
on in the facility, and like a million conversations being flown around. So like through her brain, I don't know, whatever was happening in her brain, she messed up, but she immediately corrected, right? Like she
Yeah.
immediately corrected. And through that correction, I saw that she instantly took a step
Hmm.
to make me feel validated, to know, to
Mm.
acknowledge that instant correction is an easy way for you to acknowledge that you've done wrong, to
Hmm.
correct it, and to check up on, right?
Yeah.
By you correcting yourself, you validate me because you make me feel like I am worthy of being corrected for, and that my identity is worthy of being corrected for.
Ah, it's an act of love.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Every time that we learn to be a better friend to people around us, it's always love. It's always an act of love.
Yeah. Yeah. And, from like a psychological standpoint, the other thing is like, we always have way longer to understand ourselves than everyone else around us. And sometimes like people that have known us for years, like our parents especially, or friends that we've had for a long time, like they're still like, there's a version of us that exists in their head that's still like trying to update from what they're observing through their experience. And then there's like us as we think of ourselves in our head. Those two can never possibly be exactly the same. And like,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
it's also a great opportunity for us, again, to go back to what you said, like to step back and know that not every time that somebody, if it's misgendering or if it's it can even be like any other label or identity, right, that somebody mislabels us. It could be with a job, right? Like people like your friend could genuinely forget like, oh wait, I thought you still were like a printer salesman. I don't know why that came to my mind. Maybe I've been watching The Office too much. But like they're like,
No,
wait, what? When did you
absolutely.
stop becoming a printer salesman and now you're like a makeup artist? What are you talking about? Oh, I forgot.
Oh
Right?
my god, have you ever mistakenly called a powerlifter a CrossFitter? Like, oh my god,
I
it's like
haven't,
the
but
world. It's
would
like
I?
the world is ending. It's like, what did you call me? Did you just call me a CrossFitter? Do you think I do that disgusting thing? Like, okay, calm down,
Oh
calm
my
down. It's
god!
sorry that I've wronged you. Let me recorrect myself real quick. What is your correct identity, please? Can you
Right?
tell me?
I
And
do
it's always
not
like
do handstands, thank you.
and it's always like the gruffest of men too. It's like, what did you say? Just like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's okay. Let me. Like, what do I need to? How can I correct myself for you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, we're doing okay. But yeah, it all goes back to like, let people let people correct themselves in the moment and let people validate you through their corrections.
Yeah, yeah. I also love that perspective. It's like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Do I want to be like a defensive, grumpy, like Uber mask, straight gym bro that's like, what? That's not what I call myself. Like, that is not the example we want to be following, y'all. Like, we are queer people. We are like the magicians, the artists, the unicorns. We understand dichotomy. We understand that humans are so much more than like what lift you do. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, right? Like it makes us so much better as a community together, that we can see through everything, that we can see through every identity, we can see through every label, and we can just see into the person and see the beauty that they have, right? Like that marks us as so special.
Preach. Preach. Like queer people, we are like the world leaders. I don't know why we keep having this like this narrative. I know the world is not fair and I know we're treated like shit often. But also like y'all, we're like out of the matrix more than anyone else.
Literally,
Like
literally, we have so much more insight about ourselves than 90% of the other population.
right. So maybe time to if you're one of those people that's like, wait a minute, I've never thought of that. Like now is your moment to completely change your definition of what it means to be a queer person. It actually means you're more empowered.
Literally, everybody's so surprised when I get on like podcasts, right? Or I talk to them and they're like, "You're so insightful and articulate," and I'm like, "This should be the baseline. Like this should be like I am. You're calling me articulate. I literally like can't speak English most of the time. Like it's like, and it's my only language. Like you. So like I like people get so surprised, like you just know so much about yourself and you understand so much about what you need, and I'm like, well, yeah, I guess that's all I do is figure out myself, and it's all I do is teach people how to be more themselves, and like
Mm-hmm.
it shouldn't be surprising for a queer person to be insightful and to be articulate. It shouldn't be surprising for anybody to be insightful and articulate, especially younger people.
That's what I think, but everyone keeps getting surprised, so that's all right. You know what? The world will catch up.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh my god. Okay, so tell us more about your coaching. I would love to hear like what is it like? What is someone what are their experience what's their experience going to be like working with you?
Gotcha. So I coach the classes at Liberation Barbell Club and do some individual sessions alongside that. So a lot of what
Mhm.
I do in my class is going to be teaching Olympic weightlifting and just lifting weights in general. I
Awesome.
do a nice mix between the weightlifting and powerlifting movements because I've had experience in both sports.
Cool.
And then I also have some strength and conditioning experience through having athletes coming in asking for strength and conditioning and saying, well, I guess you'll get better lifting here with an Olympic weightlifting coach than you would with anybody else.
Yeah.
So like it's a wide ranging field. I mix together strength sports, bodybuilding, everything. It's just whatever I know is going to make my athletes feel fulfilled and put
Mm,
them on a good track for improvement over time.
yeah. I love
And
it.
also like we should be having fun. Like that's the first thing I say when everybody walks in is like they always walk in like so nervous on the first time, like, uh I'm here for a drop in, and I'm like, smile, girl, we're gonna be okay. Like we're gonna have so much fun. I promise I'm not
Yes.
gonna kill you on the first day. Um, but yeah, alongside that, my one-on-one sessions usually end up being like things like technique correction,
Mm,
squat correction. I do a little bit of rehab work, but if it's outside of my realm of expertise as a kinesiology major and not a physical therapist,
yeah.
um, it definitely I will push it off. But thankfully I know enough to be able to like put you in the right space and put you in the right movement to move the best for your body.
Mm, that's so freaking awesome. Okay. What else is like you mentioned like fun and but like what's your superpower as a coach? What
Honestly, it's my focus for a lot of my athletes isn't on the physical, it's on the mental.
Mm.
And like every single athlete is so different. I have one girl that like she'll pick the bar up and get like 2 inches off the ground and be like, "This is garbage. I can't do it anymore." And it's like, finish the movement. You're gonna be okay. It's fine. We're stop being hard on yourself. And then I have other girls who just like will throw things like will just think they're in the right position and then not listen to me, and then like, and it's all a mess, right? And of
Right.
course, like coaching a class is a whole mess in and of itself. But my focus is always like, okay, let's get y'all to slow down. You've been at work all
Mm.
day. You've been at school all day. This is our time for us to get our work in, but also for us to feel good and move, right?
Mm.
I don't like bringing people in and kicking their asses, because then they go home and they feel like shit for a week and they're like, why do I hate lifting? Right? Like, no, like you're going to come in on your first day. We're going to get a nice workout in, but you're also going to have an amazing conversation, and you're going to smile a lot, because I'm going to tell you to smile a lot. And I'm going to look at you and I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, hey, take a breath. You're okay. Everything's okay. I promise you that if it looks bad, I'll tell you.
I love that.
I've gotten to the point of telling my athletes, like, I want you to walk in thinking that you are an Olympic athlete coming into training every day, right? I know that you're just some average Joe, but
Mm-hmm.
if you walk in having the confidence to lift your best every single day, it makes my job as a coach that much easier, because all I have to do at that point is just fix your errors, and that's it, right? If you can bring confidence to the gym that I don't have to give you, I just do, the hard stuff and we move on, and it's easy, and
Mm.
we have lots of fun doing it.
I love that. I feel like you working with you would be just like mountains of joy all the time. Like I feel like that's like the most amazing thing, that you just keep pushing people into like, no, like go back to having fun, smile, let's enjoy it, and like also quit beating yourself up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like we can't not enjoy what we do. There's so many people that hate working out because they just simply don't enjoy it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with my athletes too, and I'll say, look, maybe weightlifting isn't your thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's swimming, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's Pilates, maybe it's parkour. I don't know. It could be anything. But
Yeah.
you're like, until you find the one, the best way to work out is not the one that works. It is the one that makes you feel fulfilled as a person.
Mm.
And, like, makes you feel like you've actually succeeded and done something, right? Like, that's why I tell every single athlete that comes in, look, if you want to compete, you compete. Like, push yourself to compete. I don't care what the numbers look like. I know that training and acting like an athlete will always be beneficial for somebody who is that driven. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell other people, like, if you don't want to compete and you're super focused on just getting these numbers, like, write those goals down. If these things make you happy, focus on them. Don't focus on
Mm-hmm.
what's going wrong. Focus on the good things.
I love that. And I love that you also, I was going to ask you the question, as a former personal trainer and fitness coach, like the question we hate the most. What's the best workout method? But you already
Not
answered it.
like, no, the best workout method is what makes you feel good.
Yes. Everyone's like trying to kill themselves with like doing something they think they're supposed to do, and it's like, you're freaking miserable. Of course you can't have any type of like consistent repetition there. You just, it's like
Yeah,
one day and then you take a year off because you hate it.
absolutely. Absolutely. No, like, start easy, make those small goals that you can achieve in the short term, and make the large goals that you can achieve in the long term. Make yourself feel good in the moment, get that dopamine rush and that serotonin hit, and also recognize that you're building towards a bigger goal and you're building towards bettering yourself,
Yeah.
right? And like, bettering ourselves and taking more ownership of ourselves is always a plus.
Yep. And that goes for in the gym and out of it.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
All of life is the same. Oh my god. Okay. You also had some news to share about your powerlifting meet tomorrow. Do you want to share that
Cool.
now?
Let's go ahead and talk about it.
Okay.
So, tomorrow will be January 29th, which will be my powerlifting meet at approximately 9 a.m. I will drop, and will have dropped by the time this podcast airs,
Right.
a post that essentially outlines A couple things. So for my meat, which is a drug tested meat, I
Mm-hmm.
am not allowed to compete as a tested athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I will be a guest lifter, which means I will not be able to set any records in the meet, and my numbers will only count towards untested nationals if they count at all. Um, Essentially, the U.S. Powerlifting Association on January 1st snuck in an extra rule and edited an old rule to disallow trans athletes from competing tested. Um, so the first rule, of course, simply says transgender athletes will not be allowed to compete in tested meets against tested athletes and will only compete in untested meets against untested athletes. To
Mm-hmm.
break that down, essentially that means that I, a trans woman, over a year and a half into her transition, taking anti-steroids and struggling to put every single pound on the bar that she is putting, um, will have to compare my numbers and compete in untested meets against women who can use things such as testosterone, growth hormone, and other performance enhancing substances.
Mm.
The problem is that I do not want to use any performance enhancing substances
Right.
um, because one, my identity is sacred to me, and two, my it's gonna screw up my hormones. You know, like
Right.
if
It's your
I am
freaking body.
yeah, it's my body. And like being on anti steroids already puts me in a place where I have to do things like train my appetite into existence. Like if I don't get volume in, I don't get hungry, and that's because I have no testosterone in my system. Um,
Mm.
it's things like training more often for longer because I don't get the same amount of exposure to adaptation because of how my hormones work, right? Like I'm taking estrogen, it's constantly telling my body, do not build muscle. That's a constant
Mm-hmm.
like red blinking light. So every day that I don't spend putting in the extra volume for training, I will actively lose musculature and I'll actively lose a little bit of strength.
Mm.
It's still a slower process, so thankfully like week to week it's not huge, but I can imagine that if I were to take more than a week off, like I
Mm-hmm.
took a week off right before the episode came out and I came back and I was like, oh god, no, this feels awful. um,
Oh.
so like, and there's just so many things that we just struggle with, like fatigue and like and musculature loss and mental health stuff that's just, it all comes out to just disadvantageous for from a sports perspective.
Yeah.
And basically pushing us aside into the untested division, is telling us that we don't deserve or haven't earned the right to be competitive in the sport.
Mm.
um, and so any records that I would have set will not be counted. And that kind of took a lot of the momentum and
Yeah.
the excitement out of the meet for me. I'm still excited. Um, I get to compete with my friends. I get to be on the platform with people that I train with every day, train with all the
Mm-hmm.
time. Um, but I mean, getting that news that first day, I was still riding the high of Queer Eye, right? Like, but the
Right.
episode came out December 31st. On January 4th, I got a call, or no, I got a text message from the owner of the gym saying, hey, they're not going to let you compete.
Mm.
And if any athlete has been in that situation where all of a sudden, whether through injury or sickness or anything, your competition and your goals were ripped away from you like that,
Mm-hmm.
like you'll understand that I had a really bad night that night.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my we have some friends down here at USPA Texas who personally called me and spoke to me and said that I will be allowed to compete as a guest lifter, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully, they're working with me on that end. But it's really these higher ups who aren't paying attention. They're not listening to the athletes. They're not listening to the organizations. They're just listening to themselves.
Mm.
And it simply results in pushing trans people aside in the sport, pushing out trans people from the sport, and discouraging a lot of people from competing in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the second rule, which is a little bit more of a like eyebrow raiser. So the rule states that
Wait,
no
real
pres-
quick. Can I
yeah, yeah,
can I
go ahead.
just add something in here real quick? First of all, thank you for sharing all of this information. This is I th- y- you're helping everyone get insight into it. and really understand what's going on. So thank you once again just for being vulnerable and willing to share your story. You're freaking amazing.
Well, thank you for celebrating me. That makes me feel a lot better. I'm
Yeah.
always really I'm always really nervous about speaking out because, of course, like as a trans person, we just face so much on a day-to-day basis. But it's the right thing to do, and it's important, right?
Yeah.
That brings me into the second rule, which
Mhm.
essentially kind of reinforces the first, but also raises some questions for the rest of the federation.
Mhm.
Basically, what it says is that there will be absolutely no prescribed hormone use among any tested lifters at all throughout the entirety of the federation. So, of course, like it's been there forever because things like testosterone and growth hormone, those things are banned, right? Um,
Sure.
yeah. However, there was never anything specifically saying like things like estrogen and progesterone, which trans women take, were banned, right?
Oh, right.
And before January 1st, we actually had trans women that were competing and having fun in the sport because like they were allowed to compete tested because they were passing drug tests, right?
Right.
Because they were nobody was looking for estrogen and progesterone to like anti-testosterone hormones, you know,
Yep.
they were looking for the performance enhancing stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so the problem with this rule is that not only does it exclude transgender individuals, but since it's all prescribed hormones, period, it also includes intersex athletes who
Mm.
oftentimes are sterilized right after birth and require hormones for the entirety of their lives.
Mm.
Masters athletes who oftentimes, like especially the women who get past menopause, oftentimes have to take like hormones to improve their quality of life and not suffer day to day.
Mhm.
Estrogen, progesterone. Let's think about birth control. Hormonal birth control. You know how many cisgender women are on hormonal birth control, are on prescribed hormones throughout the world, right?
I think
Um,
there's going to be a lot of pregnant women lifting, or
yeah, it's like we're gonna have questions here, and I think the
uh,
worst one for me is if you have any sort of conditions that change your hormones. If you are a normal cisgender person and you have something like for example PCOS, I don't have the like exact way that works in my head, but like
okay.
PCOS like modifies your hormones, it changes how your body works, right? So oftentimes these women have to take synthetic prescribed hormones to
Mhm.
help balance out their systems and improve the quality of life.
Yeah.
You know what? Like also, insulin is also a hormone. So
Mhm.
since nobody can use prescribed hormones, if you're diabetic, you can't compete in the USPA because you're using synthetic insulin or just insulin in general as a hormone, right?
Oh my
So
god.
essentially USPA has put themselves in a position where either they're like outwardly transphobic or they're ageist, sexist, ableist, all of these things, right? So really it's just kind of like a silly moment, like you're trying to exclude trans lifters and you've ended up excluding 50% of your female population. And like they're coming at it from the position of like they're trans athletes going to dominate the sport. Where
Right.
are these trans athletes that are dominating the sport? Where are these trans athletes that are coming on pulling 700 pounds? These trans women that are just walking on the platform? No, there is zero. Oh my god! this idea that we are gonna win and we're gonna be undefeatable. Like, girl, I just got outlifted last week. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is
Yeah.
the problem. Like, it's again this putting permanence on something that is so impermanent, right?
Yeah.
It's this cycle of every 5 years a trans woman wins something, she's hated into a box, that
Mm.
box is put on the shelf, she's forgotten about, and then some cisgender athlete comes and breaks her record or gets her medal and she's forgotten about forever.
Mm.
That's how it is because there's not enough of us to reach the elite level of sports. Like
Mhm.
like I said, we deal with so much day to day that like, do you think that all of us have the willpower and the mental capacity to chase elite sports, which oftentimes put us in an unhealthy state, especially for us, right?
Mhm.
And I say it all the time: if you are a trans person and you can fight through all of these things that make it hard for you to train and to be an athlete, you
Mhm.
deserve to be on that platform.
Mhm.
Just like every other person I bring up Oscar Pistorius, who ran in the who ran in the normal Olympics as opposed to the Paralympics, even though he was a double amputee.
Mm.
Like they tried to say that he had an advantage because his blades were made of a special technology that may or may not have allowed him to get more energy on the track. Okay, but what about how good he is at freaking running? You know, what
No,
about the
that's got nothing to do with it.
yeah, it's like that's got nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing to do with it, right?
uh,
Like they're so focused on like testosterone and hormones that they're discounting the talent and the skill
right.
and the amazing work that these athletes have put in. Every time that
Mhm.
somebody looks at me and says that I'm dominating my sport, I simply laugh because you can go and look at the records on any powerlifting website and understand that I am not dominating this sport and that I am completely beatable.
Yeah.
I am competitive, but I'm not dominating.
Right.
Like, are you joking? Like, I've gotten emails saying you dominated the other girls at your meets, and I'm like, yeah, the girls that were like 40 pounds less than me. Yeah, of course I
Right.
dominated them. I lifted more than them because I weigh 40 pounds more.
Right.
Um, so like again, it's like we are so focused on like advantage of this, disadvantage that, but we lose the skill and the talent, right?
Mhm.
USA Powerlifting, when they released their third category, which I competed in,
Mhm.
um, their reasoning was that powerlifting is not a skill and talent sport; it is a strength sport. And I was like,
Mm.
not a skill and talent sport. Do you know how much mind muscle connection you have to be able to
Right.
pull that much weight? Do
It's
you know how much
ridiculous.
ridiculous? You know how much like I spend hours in the gym making my technique as perfect as it can be because it needs to be, or else I'm not going to be able to lift any more weight than I am
Right.
right now.
Right.
And calling this sport simply about strength and about like how like muscle mass, and like it's not just about that. It's about the skill and the time that the athlete puts into every single sport, right?
Mm.
And that's the stance that the Olympics have taken. That's the stance that the NCAA has taken. That's the stance that places around the globe have taken. And we're still standing here trying to prevent athletes and gatekeep athletes from competing in sports that we won't be able to dominate.
Yeah.
This is the number one sport that we will never dominate, right? I am a diamond in the rough when it comes to powerlifting, and I'm not even that good.
Mm.
So, like, when you look at the trans athlete issue, I
Yeah.
want you to look at it and say there's no issue because there's no trans athletes. It's like everybody's like, wow, you're so notable as a trans athlete. I'm like, yeah, there's like 10 of us, right? Like there's like 10 no like there's 10 trans
Right.
athletes that have garnered media attention and like have actually built like a nice platform for themselves. But
Mhm.
everybody else just doesn't want to approach these spaces at all because it's not for them.
Yeah.
So like I don't know what to tell you. Like literally I don't know what to say to people who are just like we want to protect women's sports because there's no way that we will ever create a problem in women's sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to take that one step further, sorry for taking more of your time, but
No, please keep doing it. Thank you.
every every time every time that somebody looks at me and says or types in my comments and says, well, if a trans person like gets a scholarship or gets on a team instead of a cis girl, they stole that spot. And I was like, well, actually, I would say that that spot was actually stolen by a cisgender male because the money that would have gone to that team or that scholarship or that program or that sport, that money that should be used on women's sports and encouraging
Mhm.
women to get out and play sports was actually used for the men,
Mhm.
right? We're not paying our women. We're not encouraging our women to train. We're not encouraging our women to play sports unless they are already naturally good at sports.
Mhm.
Like we put our women at a disadvantage from the very get-go. And I think that if we were to encourage more women to play sports, to compete, to train their bodies and to take ownership of their bodies, we
Yeah.
would see a massive renaissance of women in sport. Honestly, I think that women would outclass men in many different sports because we would see this huge renaissance in women being capable, strong, amazing, right? At the top level, sure, testosterone will give you an advantage in certain sports.
Mhm.
However, those women who are still at the top level of their sport are outperforming the other 95% of that sports of men,
Right.
right? So is it testosterone or is it skill and talent, right? did these women work hard, or do they have some sort of advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Like, as a trans person, my advantages are gone. Like anything that's residual from being a boy from before transition is gone, and I can feel it in my body every single day.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, yeah, like we all have some sort of advantage, whether it be your height or your wingspan, or how you simply hold muscle better than other athletes. Like, we all have some sort of biodiverse advantage in our body, and we all have disadvantages, right? And trying to gatekeep trans people out of sport out of some false idea of fair sports, right? It's silly. It's silly. It's meaningless. And I would rather err on the side of inclusion and compassion and happiness than err on the side of gatekeeping and restriction.
Do I hear an amen?
Like, let me put my soapbox away. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. That was like everything. So powerful. I'm so thankful that you've shared all this, that you had the courage to share all of this, Angel. Like, you're just a phenomenal human. You are beautiful inside and out. I adore you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Your words mean so much to me. Like, I've met so many amazing people, and to add you to that list of people that I just count is just absolutely amazing. I have no words.
Oh, thank you. Before we wrap up, is there any final like wisdom or something that you just want to put out there for the unicorns with us in their ears right now?
Well, I was told a little earlier that there was a question about how do I handle the singlet.
Oh my God, that's right. I'm glad one of us remembers things. Yeah, so Amber asked on my Instagram, she said, I'm doing my first competition. How do you deal with the singlet?
You have to grin, look in the mirror, and say, it's a uniform. It's a uniform. It's a uniform. It is a uniform. Because I completely understand how it feels to put on that singlet and be like, why does this hug every single wrong curve on my body? Because honestly, those singlets can be pretty like, oof. However, I will say that if you compete in a federation that allows that allows different singlets, I have found a lot of success with the Gymshark singlet, because it has a built-in bra. It has it's scrunched in different areas, so it gives you that like feminine curve and helps you keep your form. And like it just hugs in all the right places, as opposed to some of these singlets that are unisex and just like, here's your singlet, like it's not gonna look good on you, but you're just gonna wear it.
Yeah.
I think my advice for anybody going into their competition for the first time is go find a singlet that you know is going to hug you the way that you want it to. And don't think that you have to be forced into some brand or some other thing just because like somebody tells you to. Go find what fits you the best and go find what makes you feel the best.
I love it. That's such solid advice. Thank you. All right. Anything else that you want to make sure you get to say to everyone today?
Nope. You can follow my Instagram at Archangel Joy, my Twitter at archangel.athlete, and my website archangel.squarespace.com.
Perfect. And I'm gonna have all of that linked in the show notes, y'all. So just like scroll down there, tap on the link so that you can follow Angel and, you know, just have her joy and her energy in your online space. It's going to improve your life massively. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. Goodbye, everyone. Sending y'all my love.
Bye, unicorns. See you next week. If you enjoyed this episode, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend so they too can become more confident. You can also help more people find the show by leaving a 5-star review wherever you listen. And if you want to become a more confident queer with support from yours truly, head to coachalexray.com or use the link down in the show notes. I'm looking forward to working with you.